Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, in the wake of Friday's preseason finale, we'll talk about that. But the big news is Johnny Juzang signed a two-way contract. The Timberwolves waived Tristen Newton. We'll talk about the fallout from the preseason, what that means for the Wolves roster, potential rotation, outlook moving forward. It's all coming. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Monday, everybody. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. It's this week. Like, this is opening week. NBA gets underway tomorrow. The Timberwolves open up on Wednesday in Portland. We'll talk a lot about that. In fact, a special episode tomorrow. Going to do a crossover episode with Mike from Locked On Blazers. We're going to talk about all things Wolves Blazers, the matchup specifically, but also some big picture stuff. Portland is kind of an up-and-coming team in the West, so I want to pick his brain on the Blazers and what to expect from them this year. So that'll be tomorrow's show. Today, though, roster moves over the weekend. The Timberwolves waived their non-roster guys that were in training camp, and they also made a two-way contract move. So we'll talk about that. And Johnny Juzang will be around. He will be around at the start of the season for the Wolves. We'll talk about the potential implications of that, why the Wolves did that, and kind of overall what Juzang brought in preseason and training camp for the Wolves. So a lot to get to here today. Big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. All right, so let's start with the roster move. Before we talk about the preseason game Friday, I think the headline here is the Timberwolves, instead of just simply releasing everybody on a partially or non-guaranteed contract, the Timberwolves actually chose to retain Johnny Juzang, waiving Tristen Newton in the process. You'll remember Tristen Newton was claimed off waivers about 10 months ago. I believe it was early December last year, late November, early December, from the Pacers. He'd been a second-round pick from Indiana, or by Indiana, I should say. And the idea was he's kind of a dynamic combo guard with some upside on both ends of the floor, athletic, decent size, etc. I was never, like, the limited amount of times he got on the floor for the Wolves in the regular season, and so far, well, really summer league and preseason, I was a bit underwhelmed. And obviously the Wolves were too. I thought he was kind of the square peg in the round hole, if you will, when it comes to the roster itself. Not really fitting. Like, he's not a point guard. He's not a great shooter. He's not a great defender. The upside isn't tremendous. Like, the upside is probably a role player. So it was a bit odd to me that the Wolves had continually brought him back. They gave him the qualifying offer this offseason as a two-way player, and then ultimately re-signed him as a two-way guy alongside Enrique Freeman and the rookie second-round big man Rocco Zikarsky. They also let go of Jesse Edwards earlier in the offseason. Now, which surprised me a little. Like, I think all things equal, I think Jesse Edwards made more sense on a two-way deal than Tristen Newton, but neither one of them really made a whole lot of sense to me, and now they moved on from both of them. They've decided to keep Johnny Juzang on a two-way deal, and I think there probably was part of this where Juzang wasn't sure that he'd be cool with the two-way deal, but my guess is his agent canvassed the league, cuts being made this weekend. There were several moves around the league, different guys being released, and probably had a sense for, like, hey, nobody's going to give him a standard guaranteed contract. There could be a path to some minutes, some depth type minutes for this Wolves team, as a bigger wing down the way or down the road. And it's a good team. Like, if they're going to give us a two-way, we'll take it. And so Juzang settled for a two-way. The Timberwolves made the move, waiving Newton to bring him, or to retain him, I should say. And, the quick book on Juzang is that he started 18 games for the Jazz last year and was a rotation player in a bad team, but the shooting upside is real. The size is very real. The question with him was really, can he do anything besides shoot? And defensively, is he going to be consistent enough given his size, given the position he plays as a wing, a big wing? And he does fill that role for Minnesota. Other than Jaden McDaniels, the Timberwolves don't have another big wing like Johnny Juzang, who in theory could be a two-way type player, literally two-way contract, but also two-way as in offense and defense. And Chris Finch said as much, the interview he did with Britt Robson at MinPost a couple of weeks ago, I guess almost 3 weeks ago now. He talked about wanting to see if Juzang can defend. And that was the big question in Utah. I think the environment there wasn't exactly like, conducive to playing really good, motivated individual defense. And I thought Juzang was pretty good in preseason. Now, he started super hot on the offensive end outside the arc and finished much cooler. We'll talk a little bit about the Philadelphia game here in a bit, but over the last couple of games, he didn't shoot great. I think he was 0 for in the Philly game. Yeah, 0 for 4 outside the arc. But he's going to be a high 30s-ish percentage three-point shooter. He's going to be a big body that in theory can rebound and defend a little bit. And he did all those things. And again, Minnesota doesn't have a lot of big wing depth. They're going to play smaller guard lineups. They're going to play Mike Conley alongside Dante DiVincenzo. They're going to play Mike Conley alongside Rob Dillingham. Ant's going to play with two guards. Occasionally Jaden McDaniels will play some four. They don't really have that. And Enrique Freeman is more of a small four than he's certainly not a three. Like, he can shoot a little bit, but he's not a three, and he's another two-way guy. Joe Ingles would fit that kind of big forward role, but he's obviously not expected to play heavy minutes. He's obviously not a defender in any stretch, by any stretch of the imagination at this stage, or really ever. So the Juzang thing, I actually think he does fill a depth role for Minnesota. Now, he's obviously not going to play rotation minutes, but I do think Minnesota will be open to playing him depending on the situation, depending on the opponent. If it's a back-to-back and, somebody's sitting, or if Jaden's a little banged up, Juzang's at least somebody with some NBA experience and a track record of having some success at the NBA level. And that's the type of player that I could see Chris Finch being like, all right, I trust this guy to play 10 minutes because Jaden's down or Jaden's in foul trouble and it's a back-to-back or whatever. I do see that as a legitimate kind of route for Juzang to find some minutes at the NBA level for the Wolves. Now, obviously in a two-way deal, they could send him down to Iowa. He could play down there. But I think they're going to look at this and be like, all right, dude shot 38% for three last year, 42% on limited volume 2 years ago. There's a little bit of upside. Like, we're still talking about a guy that's only 24. He doesn't turn 25 until March. There is something to like there about Johnny Juzang. And I think the combination of some NBA experience, but a little bit of upside and rotation level upside, and if he can play some defense, he's a very playable guy. Minnesota's like, look, this is luxury to have this depth on a two-way deal. And honestly, I was a little bit surprised that the Wolves were able to get him on a camp deal, because there are bad teams out there that should be taking a look at this guy and being like, all right, he was pretty good in Utah last year, and we can, bad teams that are trying to be good, right? Like, teams that are trying to be on the ascent, like, we could give this guy 25, 30 minutes a game, see if he can put up 13 and 7 and play good defense and shoot 39% from three. Like, those are all realistic things. And Minnesota hasn't really treated their two-way slots like that in the last couple of seasons. They've mostly picked up young guys that they want to kind of see if they could turn into something. And obviously that worked to an extent with Luka Garza. It's worked to an extent. There's been a couple other guys who are obviously going way back. Now, as Reid originally signed a two-way under the Rosas regime, not under Tim Conley, but they've really kind of used them more as developmental roles and like break glass in case of emergency type depth. Like Bones Highland at the end of last year would kind of fit the Johnny Juzang category of like, just in case we need this guy, we trust him enough to play him in an NBA regular season game. That's where Juzang fits. And that's why Minnesota made the move. And keeping Enrique Freeman, obviously they were going to keep Rocco Zakarsky. So Newton was clearly going to be the odd man out. And I love this move. It should be, hopefully it's inconsequential. But if they need Juzang, they're going to be really glad that they have him, because they just don't have anyone else that kind of fits that same bill. They also waived Jules Bernard, who I liked. We'll talk a little bit more about him in the Sixers game discussion, because I did really like him. Zion Pullen was waived as well. No surprise to either of those guys. And then Alize Johnson was also waived by the Timberwolves. So is that everybody? Yeah. Newton, Johnson, Pullen, and Bernard were the four guys that were waived. So no surprises there outside of the mild surprise of Tristen Newton being waived to retain Johnny Juzang. Next, I want to get into the Sixers game, some key takeaways there, and overall kind of overarching key takeaways from the preseason, the 6 games the Timberwolves played, and we'll set you up for the rest of the week here as real live Timberwolves regular season basketball is on the horizon. We'll talk about all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. The swivel screen is an absolute game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. Plus, the personalized class recommendations keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Monarch Money. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It'll help you organize your accounts. It'll help you track your spending. Maybe you just want to get a better handle on what you're investing in, and you don't ever need to touch a dreaded spreadsheet. You can review everything with your partner, see your shared goals, etc., and just make better financial decisions together. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools will make it a ton easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right. Let's talk about the Wolves-Sixers game on Friday. Of course, the headline is that no rotation players, this side of Rob Dillingham, played for the Timberwolves in this game on the second night of a preseason back-to-back, traveling from Chicago to Philadelphia. So undoubtedly getting in at, 1, 2 something in the morning, and having to play on Eastern time zone on Friday night. Notably, though, Joel Embiid played for the Sixers. The first time he's played since February. They tried to get him a little bit of run at the start of both halves in order to, get him run that he hasn't had in a very, very long time. Tyrese Maxey played. Kelly Oubre played. VJ Edgecombe, the rookie, played. So some legit guys playing for the Sixers. And, of course, Philly was up 6 at the end of the first quarter, 7 at halftime, and ultimately won by 16. Not a surprise there, given who played and who didn't for each team. Also, notably, Jalen Clark played for Minnesota after not having played in a while. He had the neck sprain from the collision he had, 10 days ago, 12 days ago, something like that. So he was able to get on the floor. Leonard Miller played again, which was nice to see. And, of course, Johnny Juzang played and was able to kind of, put the finishing touches on earning the final two-way spot for Minnesota. The headline for me in this one, I think we got to start with Dillingham as well as Joan Beringer, who, of course, Beringer then was able to, he started and played 28 minutes, which was second most of the team next to Leonard Miller. Dillingham played 26. Beringer finished with 13 points, 3 rebounds, 6 of 7 shooting. He had 3 blocks. And this was a really interesting, I thought this performance really underscored the things that we know Beringer is very good at. We already know based on Summer League and 6 preseason games, and the things we know he's not good at. And this game, perhaps more than, it was like the perfect kind of microcosm of the things that we know about Joan Beringer. Let's start with the good. He's a monster defensively, an absolute monster. He was good enough against Joel Embiid, and there's things about Embiid, like we've talked about this before, but true back to the basket centers. We saw this in the Nuggets game with Valanciunas and Jokic. Like, they're going to give Beringer a ton of problems this year if he ends up matched up against them. Embiid, of course, can do that, but he'd much rather face up and take you to the basket off the dribble or shoot a jumper over you. And I thought Beringer was fine against him. He gave up a jumper pretty early. There were a couple of drives. There was a couple of fouls in there from Beringer. I thought it was fine for the monster that Joel Embiid is. What Beringer was able to do defensively was, I thought, very good. And we saw it as a help defender on others. We saw it in transition. We saw it when he was guarding guys that were not named Joel Embiid. And to play 28 minutes, have 3 blocks and a steal and 4 fouls is totally fine. That's a good line. It's a good performance from Beringer. And the feel that he shows is just still so remarkable. And I keep talking about this. And I think the word I used the other day was shocking. Like, he's already a borderline dominant defensive player. And he certainly has dominant stretches. I don't have the per game in front of me for the preseason, but I bet he's averaging a block and a half, almost 2 blocks per game in the preseason. And of course, the playing time has been sporadic. But like right now, he is a disruptive NBA defender. I wouldn't necessarily say he's for sure dominant, but he's absolutely disruptive as of right now. And dominant, we're not far off from that. Now, the things that he struggles with are pretty apparent. Some of the field type stuff offensively, I think his screen, like setting screens, and then his feel for rolling, there's some work to be done there. Some of the spacing when he is rolling after setting a screen, obviously there's not much range. He's not a jump shooter. Those things need a little bit of work. I still think he has very good feel when he's playing out of the dunker, when he's just trying to space down low, and also on the offensive glass. He didn't have any offensive boards in this game, but I thought the activity level was good and right place, right time. A lot of the time, getting hands on balls and stuff like that. Some of that polish offensively, what he does after, like the screen setting itself, and then what he does after setting the screen needs some work. The offensive glass generally has been good, even if he didn't have an offensive board in this game. The defensive glass has needed help consistently for Beringer. We talked about this just the other day. It might have been, I don't remember if it was Wednesday show or what day it was last week. But the defensive rebounding has been extremely inconsistent. And in this game specifically, he played 28 minutes and had just 3 defensive boards. That's not enough if you're the starting center. And the Timberwolves as a team in this game, preseason game, all the obvious caveats apply, were a -8 on the glass. They allowed 15 offensive rebounds to the Philadelphia 76ers. And 4 of them, by the way, to VJ Edgecombe, who's not a big. So it's not just Beringer. Like Rob Dillingham got beat for a couple offensive rebounds badly. He had 2 rebounds total in 26 minutes. Like he's got to rebound better. Jalen Clark's got to rebound better. But Beringer, certainly, given his role, his position, the expectations, that's an area that I talked about this the other day. Offensive rebounding is more about effort than anything else. Defensive rebounding is more about technique, understanding where the ball is more likely to go, getting into somebody's body, boxing out, and obviously effort plays into it. But you can't consistently rebound simply based on effort. And that was the biggest problem, or that's been the biggest problem for Beringer, is the effort's there, the athleticism there, the length is there. But if you're going to defensive rebound and seal off a guy who's hungry and trying to get an offensive board so he can score a bucket or kick it back out for an assist for his teammate to knock down an open 3, you have to get some of that technique stuff right. And Beringer did not, is still struggling in that regard. So defensive rebounding, some of the screen setting and being a roll big needs to get a little bit better for him. We did see him convert a lob dunk from Dillingham. We saw him in pick and roll games score. I think third quarter he had a nice roll and was able to score there off of a pick and roll with Dillingham. But that chemistry, I think, is growing. The defensive rebounding to me is the biggest thing as of right now. I think he could plug and play with the Timberwolves starters as a defensive kind of wreak havoc guy, and then like a bit of an afterthought offensively, but cleaning up the offensive glass, sitting in the dunker, waiting for lobs, and drop off pocket passes. Like I think he could be effective enough to play real rotation minutes if they needed him to. That's obviously not the plan. Related to Rob Dillingham, Rob I thought was I don't know, like most Rob Dillingham games, this was a mixed bag. It really was. And it's so funny because I talk about this like every time he plays in the preseason, a few times the regular season last year, summer league, where you see the flashes, you're like, man, this guy could be Jamal Crawford, Lou Williams, insert your small scoring guard, combo guard here. Also, like he shows the bad side of those guys as well. He shot 5 of 11. That's great. That'll play. He had 7 assists. That's really good. He was 0 of 3 on threes, which that'll come. Like he's a good 3-point shooter. I'm not worried about that. He also had 5 turnovers. He was a game worst, -27. Only 2 Timberwolves players were worse than a -20. One was Beringer, who was a -21, and Dillingham was a -27. And individual players sitting in plus minus is noisy. I say this every time. I always have to add that caveat. If you're a regular listener, you probably are tired of me saying it, but I have to say it. It's noisy. But he struggled defensively in this game. He got lost a couple of times, got beat off the dribble. I mentioned already he got beat for offensive rebounds. He was so worried, I think, on where his defensive positioning was that he forgot that he had a responsibility to check, guys running past him on the baseline for offensive rebounds, corner crashing, etc., and just didn't execute those responsibilities. So again, a very mixed bag, very much a roller coaster from Rob Dillingham in this game. And I still think he is, there's still so much upside there. And we're going to see him, I think, as a semi-regular rotation piece in that ninth man role with Jalen Clark, depending on matchups, depending on if if the Wolves need offense or defense. It's going to depend on that when it comes to which guy gets to play. And Jalen Clark we'll talk more about him in a second. He was good in this game. Actually, he was very good in this game. But the offensive upside of Dillingham is still so tantalizing that he's undoubtedly going to see some run early in the season, but he's got to play well in order to continue to earn those minutes. I want to hit on a couple of other guys I want to talk about. Really, I guess some of the roster moves we already talked about, but how those guys played. We'll talk about Jalen Clark. Leonard Miller as well had another nice game. We'll do all that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our title sponsors over at FanDuel. The NFL season is into week 7 now, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Of course, big slate of Sunday games already in the books, and now we got Monday Night Football. And I'm trying to pull up who the game is on Monday night. It looks like it's, let's see, we just have one game? No, we have 2 games this week. Or is it just one game? I don't know. My schedule looks weird. I think it's 2 games. I think it is Bucks and Bucks at Lions and then Texans at Seahawks. Bucks at Lions, Detroit is -5.5. Seattle is -3 at home against the Texans. Lions -5.5. I like that. The Bucks are good, but I think the Lions at home are going to be like, all right, this is prime time. It's our house. Texans at Seahawks, I would take Seahawks -3. So I'd take both home favorites this week. Of course, I had my Thursday night pick correct when I picked that one, Bengals and Steelers. So check it all out at FanDuel. Of course, you can also same game parlays. You can live bet the games, however you prefer to do it. If you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel will make the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Game Time. Basketball season is officially here. It kicks off this week, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team, and that's where Game Time comes in. The app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Of course, the Timberwolves open on the road this week. They're at Portland at the Lakers. So if you are happen to be in Portland or the greater LA area and want to check out a game, obviously head over to Game Time. Also, the Pacers are the home opener Sunday at 6:00, and the Wolves will, that's actually the front end of a back-to-back. They play against the Nuggets on Monday night. So consecutive or back-to-back games and 3 straight games at home there, games 3, 4, and 5 of the season. You can check out all the tickets that Game Time has to offer. Their zone deals are a massive game changer. You can pick the section, and then Game Time will pick your seats, and you say big. You can even find NBA tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right. Other notables from Wolves Sixers on Friday night. We talked a little about Jalen Clark. I just think he's an NBA player. He just straight up is an NBA player. And the 3-point shot between Summer League and the limited preseason action because of the injury, he had an escape dribble quarter 3 that just didn't look comfortable. But if he can catch and shoot, I think he's a league average 3-point shooter. I know he shot like a little over 40% last year, but it was under 100 attempts. The key is, can he be in the 37% range plus or minus, be good enough that he keeps teams honest from the corner, and you could play him 20 minutes a game and he's going to help you because he's that good defensively. He absolutely wreaks havoc on the defensive end of the floor. And he was really good in this game. He got to the line 3 times for 6 shots, made all 6 of them at the line, 2 assists in 21 minutes for Jalen Clark. He is just a nice, solid NBA player and a fantastic defender. And I think more often than not, there's a shot he gets those 9th man rotation minutes over Rob Dillingham. Leonard Miller, 21 points on 7 of 10, 2 of 4 on 3-point shots, 5 rebounds, 3 of them on the offensive glass, 3 assists, 2 steals. He did have 5 turnovers. He is the classic case of he's kind of all over the place. And a lot of times it's good and sometimes it's bad. And like, he's a shoot first guy who's also really active on the offensive glass and plays hard all the time. Like, those types of players aren't always guys that give you max effort, but that's how Miller is going to see his get buckets if he cracks an NBA rotation at some point, is on the offensive glass. He obviously can score off the dribble. He's a good shooter. If he becomes a very good shooter, then I think there's a path to him being a rotation player sooner rather than later, whether it's on the Wolves or somebody else. I've said this a couple times, but I could see him as a trade candidate. I think other teams will be interested in him. There's some upside there, and I thought he played well despite the turnovers. Him and Dillingham were kind of, especially early in the game, it was like those two guys were taking all the shots for the Wolves, it seemed like. And outside of like Johnny Juzang catch and shoots, it was basically Dillingham and Miller that were trying to get shots up on the rim. And they did. And they both shot well. Like, combined, they were 12 of 21 in this game. 2 of 7 outside the arc, both makes from Leonard Miller. And they got to the line combined 6 of 7 at the free throw line. So good performance from Leonard Miller. And I'm hopeful he gets some run at some point this season. He's kind of that, him and Beringer are going to kind of battle it out for the Luka Garza role, if you will. Obviously not the same type of player as Luka, but it's essentially that same role. Bones Highland held on to his roster spot, at least as of this recording, and I think he will have it because it was a mostly guaranteed deal is what the reporting was. 10 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. He did have 3 turnovers, but he's I don't know, he's a deep bench guard for the Wolves. I don't think he sees any rotation minutes. I think he's behind Dillingham on the depth chart, as he should be, but he was fine in this game. Tristen Newton has been waived. He had another poor performance, 3 assists, but 3 turnovers, 0 of 5 shooting, missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts for Newton, and undoubtedly he'll catch on somewhere, perhaps even on another 2-way. There is some upside there. I just thought it was limited enough that I understand why the Wolves chose to move on. Rocco Zakarsky, this is probably the best all-around game I think he's played in the preseason. He had a couple really nice summer league performances, but I thought he was really good in this one. 9 points on 3 of 5, had 1 really nice driving layup on the left-hand side. Obviously, he's a lefty. 1 of 2 outside the arc. Nice to see him make a 3. 4 boards, including an offensive rebound, 2 assists, a steal, a block. Activity level was high. The defense was solid. He had a block on Joel Embiid that was called a foul initially. The Wolves challenged. It was overturned to a no call, and then it was Wolves ball. Held his own defensively. I thought he was great in this game, and obviously he's a ways away from being an NBA rotation caliber player, but I thought he looked good, and I like him as a player. I like his upside. Not much to say about Elise Johnson. He's been waived. Enrique Freeman, 5 boards in 14 minutes. That's going to be his ticket to NBA minutes at some point, is rebounding. And I thought he struggled there earlier in the preseason, but looked good on the glass in this game. Knocked down a 3 as well. Like, he's kind of knocked down some threes, grabbed some boards. Like, that's the type of player he is. Energy guy. I thought he played well. Zion Pullen, also been waived. Not a whole lot to say there either. I thought he got some first half minutes, and I thought he looked fine. Jules Bernard, I continue to like him. The plus minus was ugly for him in this game, but he had 11 points, 6 free throw attempts, 2 of 4 shooting, knocked down a 3, had 1 really nice drive where he took, I forget who was guarding him, dropped him off at the rim, got a goaltend call, but the shot went in anyway. He's been waived too, but I hope he ends up back with the Wolves. I think he will. I think all those guys probably will, except for Newton. But I really like Jules Bernard. I think he's got a future as an NBA type player, or he'll be very, very good in the G League this year is possible as well. All right. Also noted, I didn't say this off the top because it was kind of obvious, but I should note that on Saturday, it was reported that the Timberwolves exercised their options for next year, 26-27 rookie contract options for both Rob Dillingham and TJ Shannon. Not a surprise at all. Dillingham has a guarantee of almost $7 million next year. Shannon's will be $2.8 million. It's very rare that teams would not exercise those, and both those guys, of course, still have a lot of upside, and Shannon's going to be a big part of what the Wolves are doing this year. So much so he didn't even play in this game, which I'm not surprised given that it was a back-to-back, but maybe a little bit surprising just because he needs reps, right? But that's how important TJ Shannon is to the Wolves this year, assuming basically what that Nickeil Alexander-Walker role was. But anyway, both those guys are now under contract for the year following this one, the 26-27 season. I mentioned this at the top of the show, but for the rest of this week, Tuesday, we're going to do a crossover episode, myself and Mike Richmond from Locked On Blazers. We're going to talk Wolves Blazers on Wednesday night. We'll hear a little bit about what Mike has to say about Chauncey Billups, the job he's done with Portland. and the finish to last season for the Blazers and what to expect this year from Portland. We'll talk a little matchup talk too, but I think it'll be more of a bigger picture conversation to get you set for the season and also learn a bit more about a divisional opponent. And then, of course, Wednesday, I'll do a preview show. We'll talk a Blazers game on Wednesday, but we'll do a lot of that Tuesday. So Wednesday will really be a prediction show for the season. I'll get my final win total prediction, a couple other predictions for the season, some quick Western Conference playoff. I'll probably do playoff teams in both the West and the East, so I'm on the record there with what I think will happen. We'll do all that on Wednesday's show. So a packed week ahead, getting you ready for Wolves Trailblazers on Wednesday night. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. Wherever you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also watch on the Locked On Sports Minnesota app on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV. Of course, for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. Our guy, Josh Lloyd, hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, gives you daily tips and helps you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, this podcast is also part of that very same Locked On Podcast Network, your local experts on all the biggest stories. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.